You are now listening to the ReEducation podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the ReEducation podcast.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Hello. So I've got some real amazing guests with me today for a very specific and needed conversation. And before I reveal what the topic is, I would just like everybody to go around and just say who they are, what they do.
Okay, so I suppose I'll kick it off. I'm Adrian McCrae. I'm involved or the founder of an organization called Organized Generation. It was set up primarily to create traction, create a conversation, create a platform that people can actually, openly discuss whether or not the prison system is working as it should do for the people who are in it, not only who work in it, but also the people who are held in it, and how they can make the system better in order to release people, back into society as productive members of society, and not necessarily release them back into society as, still that person who's thinking in that way. So that's me, really. No.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Akinsanya. I'm a defense barrister, 27 years experience now defending criminal cases. I practice from Great James Street Chambers in London. I am the founder of Life of Focus, which is a mentoring and motivational speaking platform. And I'm also the host of Life in Focus, which is a program that looks at the criminal justice system and aspects of its impact on the Black community. I'm very much involved in youth mentoring and development programs, and I have a passion for people realizing their true potential.
Hi, my name is Elisha. I am a blogger, YouTuber, all around entrepreneurial everything. And yeah, I feel like I have some insight into this conversation, so that is why I am here today.
Thank you all. I guess you already know who I am. If you don't, I'm Simone. Welcome to my podcast. So today we're going to have a conversation around the experiences of the criminal justice system from different perspectives. So you've heard everybody's intro, so you already kind of have an insight as to what each guest today brings to this conversation. And as this is the ReEducation podcast, tagline, lived experiences of racism. So we will be talking about the experiences of the criminal justice system from different perspectives, and also highlighting and kind of touching on how race has impacted the experiences of each of us, really, whether we've been inside prison, worked inside prison, or had a loved one inside prison, or we work to, I would say, represent in the courts people who live in the criminal justice system. So I just want to start off by asking each of you, what does this topic mean to you?
Well, I suppose it's the topic it's one of those topics that needs to be addressed from all perspectives. But at the same time, I suppose, until it's addressed and until it's out there and maybe people are focused on it, it's something that will continue to happen. I suppose at the end of the day, if it doesn't fix itself, or if it doesn't lend itself to be fixed, then we will be still in this situation in the next, you know, decade or two. So, you know, I would say that that's the main focus, to kind of, you know, sincerely get that message out there and you know, work on it.
Mm.
You know?
I guess from my perspective, it's always been about educating people about the criminal justice system, how it works. As someone who's part of it, I think there's a real need, especially amongst our young people, to understand the dynamic of the criminal justice system, how it impacts not just you, but your family, what sentencing is all about, how the law is applied in these cases. I think we live in a time where young people need to know, and hopefully it will inform some of the choices that they make before they become involved in it, or decide to abstain from being involved, because they know what lies ahead if you choose that lifestyle.
Thank you.
I mean, for me, the topic is, I guess, quite close to home, because I have had loved ones in prison from different perspectives. Like, as a child, my father was in prison. As a mother, my partner was in prison. And I've had experiences with relatives going to prison. So I feel like I've seen it from a lot of different angles, and the way that it can affect them when they're there and when they come back home. So I feel like it does affect them, and it affects the people that they leave on the outside, as well as it does to them.
Most definitely.
It's like, I really do hear about the perceptions that people have of what it's like in a prison, from what they see on TV, or, you know, the odd stories that they might hear. And until we actually work hard to change what people think and believe prisons to be, and the experiences of young people, adults, whoever is in the criminal justice system, I think that that's a starting step, from the education to the awareness to the impact that it has on people outside with loved ones inside. You know, that it's not just like a ripple effect. You send one person to prison, it doesn't mean that it's just the person that goes to prison that has to deal with the sentence.
Well, no, it's all the family members, it's the wife, the partner, the children, and the impact is like you said, it's a definite ripple effect, because, you know, a partner being in prison obviously creates a situation where, you know, you've now left your other partner outside struggling, because obviously they're now on their own. You know, whatever income you were helping or providing, that's no longer there. You know, they have to cope with the situation of, you know, the young people or children kind of acting up, because obviously, you know, they think, well, maybe the disciplinarian isn't there, so therefore they could take advantage. I mean, it's you know, it's a wide knock-on effect, you know, not only through the community as the individuals themselves, but and also as well for the person who's actually in prison. Because, you know, yes, I was always one of those people who, you know, strongly believed you do the crime, do the time. That's me. I was never one of those people that, you know, I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly the risks that I was taking. I understood the consequences behind my actions. So therefore, on the other side of that, when I got arrested and got locked up, my only real concern at that point was for my family, because for myself, I had already made peace with that. Because I knew that this is the life I'm living, and that is a consequence of it, you know, because this is what happens as well. We've got a lot of young people out there who are quite happily will get involved in criminality and quite happily go along when it's all buzzing and everybody's spending money and you're buying the clothes and it's all good. But then when you get sentenced and you go to prison, you know, especially as a first time, you know,
not mentally prepared.
Yeah, you're not mentally prepared for that, you know. And also as well, you get the flip side of that person now starting to, you know, oh, well, I shouldn't be here, making excuses. And this is something that I want to kind of put out there right from the get-go, Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, yes, we have got problems in the system. Yes, we have got systemic racism in the system, but we also have to take responsibility that we are a part of that situation too. Yeah, because the blame can't be placed just alone at everybody else's feet. It has to be placed at our own feet too. You know, we have to take responsibility. You know, you can't want to think, well, you're going to go to prison, because this is who I was. You know, I went there, put on pause, and, you know, you're just waiting to get back out the gate to continue doing what you were doing before you got locked up, or do it better, you know. And those people are not taking responsibility for themselves whilst they're in there. You know, I was someone that went to prison. I was dyslexic from a real, you know, all of my life. I still am right now, you know, but I left school with no qualifications. I went to prison. I've got 5 diplomas from prison. Yeah. I'm 120 points away from a degree, Open University, which I did in prison. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is the point where I'm saying that as much as we yes, recognize the systemic racism, and we recognize that there isn't a disparity in that justice system, our young people have to also take responsibility for themselves and step up to the plate and say, listen, at the end of the day, I'm now here. What am I going to do for that period of time that I'm here? Either educate myself, learn a new skill, something that when I get back out there, I'm a bit better off. You know, I've got choices, you know, but most of us, I'm sorry to say, it's just another party and bullshit.
Yeah.
You know?
I think when they go in, from my experience, when they go in, that first bit, the first period of time is sort of them linking up with people. Because right now, I feel like there's a lot of people that they know when they go in there. So they already have a little friendship group. They link up with their people and it's like a party at first. And then it sort of dies down and they realize, oh, you know, I'm here and I've got to make something happen. But I feel like some of them get very demotivated. I feel like when my son's father went to prison, I had to kind of motivate him to make the most of the time that he's in there. Okay, you're in there, you have to sit down, you can't do anything. So stimulate your mind, learn something, do something with yourself while you're there, because I feel like it can go either way. You can link up with the wrong kind of people and then just plan what you're going to do when you get back out, or you can get really low and just feel like I've let my family down, I've left my baby out there, I'm not seeing my child grow. When I come outside, he's not going to know me. It's all these things that swim around in your head. Sometimes I feel like if you don't have somebody on the outside kind of pushing you, that can really play a part on your mind.
Without a doubt, because I would say this from my perspective, if I didn't have the support of my family and my loved ones, you know, who were there and made me know that, listen, okay, this is a bad situation, but we're going to ride it. We're going to ride through to the end and come out the other side. I mean, and that is a huge, huge, important factor in how someone does their sentence. Because, you know, I've seen where people have come in and within, you know, they've got a 5-6 year sentence or maybe more. And within the first 6 months, their life has just fallen apart. You know, the missus has left, she's taking the kids, she wants to sell the house, she doesn't want nothing to do with them, you know, nobody's coming to see them, you know, and it can quite as easily go like that very, very quickly. So, you know, definitely having family support is key in helping with that, you know, reinvention of who you are.
Yeah. And I think, you know, what concerns me is the level that a lot of our youth are now coming into the criminal justice system. It's not a graduation level, if you like. They're coming in at the top tier. So, you know, this is what worries me, because they are being introduced to the criminal justice system, and they are not just getting a 6 or 7 month sentence to sort of warm themselves in or bed themselves into a short sentence, and I can plan my exit, they're coming in at 15 and 20 years.
Yeah.
It's really hard to start planning anything for that kind of future, because you go in as a teenager, you come out as a middle-aged man. And my concern is that a lot of them do not understand the impact that their offending or their conviction will have, not just on themselves, but their wider family. And I've been in so many murder cases now, where when that jury comes in and they say guilty, you know, you hear the audible screams of mothers and relatives falling to the floor in the public gallery, because they know what's coming. They know it's a life sentence. And this is what the young don't understand. We're not talking about sentences that you can bust or sentences you can ride. We're talking of years. And that's even if you're lucky to be released at the end of your sentence, because you'll do 15 years and that's all of it, half, that's all of it. And then the parole board will decide, have you been a good citizen? Should we let you out? So you're literally condemning yourself to a life sentence and that of your family. And that's what worries me.
And the thing is with that, what you're just saying there, Stephen, is that you have to understand that when someone that young gets a life sentence, they visualize things in different ways. I mean, because when they hear that someone's 40 years old, they think you're old. Yeah. So in their eyes, when they start to do the numbers, they start to do the maths after they've got a 15 or a 25 rec, and they start to do the math, in their heads, they analyze that I'm going to be an old man. I'm no good for anything. I'm, you know, so immediately in their minds, they have switched off that kind of motivational, kind of inspiring kind of goal. It's now, you know, I'm just going to exist in this arena that I'm in, and you know, I'm here for 15 years. And that's the sad thing, because what happens is that you've got, you know, I mean, I've met a few young men who got sentenced like you would have seen, Stephen, at a young age. They went through the young offenders side of it, but they were doing life sentences. Yeah. They went through the young, the you know, under 21s all the way up. Now they're in adult prison. And, you know, for all the time that I've spent in and out of prison, it's very few, I mean, especially in this country, it's very few lifers that you see kind of lock themselves into doing, you know, a degree, masters and so forth and so forth. Over here, don't get me wrong, there are a few that do it, but there are not a lot, because a lot of them just switch their mind off and think, you know, my life is over.
Yes.
You know, my life is over. So they kind of give up the hope of they're gonna ever see road again. Yeah. You know, and then when you've got all of these other sophisticated sentences that they've come out with, 3 strikes, IPP, that are just soulless sentences. I mean, those sentences just
never end,
completely erode your soul if you're not strong enough. You know, because you have no idea as to when you're getting out, because you can have a tariff, but that tariff means absolutely nothing, right? Because what they fail to realize is every time you get nicked for smoking weed, having a telephone, abuse, fighting, whatever, you're adding a year on to your parole, you know? So it's terrible, because I mean, I've seen kids that, you know, have got 18 months, 12 months IPP sentence, and they've been in 10 years.
Wow.
Right? They've been in 10 years.
It's that lack of ability to see how my actions now is going to impact me in the long run, because they've already said to themselves, well, I'm here, like, my life's done, like, I'm spending my life in prison, so there's no point. And I've met so many young people that have been at the start or on trial, about to find out how long they're like the possibility of them being found guilty is like 100%, but not actually preparing for when they hear that guilty. And then the prospect of then having to wait to hear what the sentence is, and then having that time between limbo, because I didn't even know until I started working in the prison that there's some cases And sometimes when they're found guilty, that they have to then wait for the sentence. So they even have that time in between where they're waiting, like, well, I don't even know how long I'm going to be here. I know that my life is over because it's guilty for this conviction or for that conviction. And there's so many young men that I've worked with that were in prison because of murder or assault or joint enterprise, because that was my introduction to joint enterprise in 2015. I will never forget that. There was at least 4 young people, none of which were at the scene of the crime, and they all got found guilty.
Yeah, because that joint enterprise, as Stephen will know, the net of it spreads so wide and so far that it's almost, I mean, and they use that and the conspiracy, you know, because the net is so wide that they don't really have to prove that much. They just have to prove that you are involved in the net.
Yes.
And then once you're involved in the net, that's enough for them to then sentence you to whatever the case may be, you know. And
another way to put as much young Black men within the prison as possible.
Yeah.
And this is why for me, that knowledge and, you know, the work that I do in going to school, primary school level, saying, look, this is what joint enterprise actually practically means. You don't have to have been there. You know, if you're associating with the wrong people, your social media platform where something happens and you seem to be lending encouragement or support to it, that could find you on trial for murder. And you want to really play Russian roulette with the rest of your life, because as good as a lawyer you may have, there are 12 people who are going to hear a narrative about gangs, all sorts of rivalry. And even if you're not involved in it or you're on the periphery of it, you run the rest of your life being spent in prison for something you didn't actually take part in. That's crazy. But this is why the knowledge is so important. I was amazed the number of people who still do not understand what joint enterprise is and how it can really impact you.
No. I worked with a group whilst I was in prison called Keep Out. It was started by a guy, Michael, in '96. And this was an in-prison charity that allowed young people from Prus and that kind of stuff to come and visit into the prison. And we talked to them, and it was delivered, the course was delivered by prisoners. Yeah. So it was a really good course. I mean, I must find out what they're doing now, because some wise Home Secretary decided to sack the program because he said, oh, it's influencing young people to go to prison, when it was the complete opposite. We've had judges, we've had police officers, we've had probation officers that we present to before they bring their young people, and all of them have agreed that the work that we were doing was so impactful and so worth doing that we reached out to the young people better than they did.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and, you know, stuff like that, you know, and that program was about, like what Stephen was saying, about educating young people about what they really don't know, you know, because their education is what they hear from their boy next door or someone's big brother come home from prison or whatever. They don't know factuals. They know, you know, the idea of what this thing is, you know, but when you started to, when you started to break it down, you know, like I'm smoking a joint, I pass it to him. That's supply.
Right.
They're like, what are you talking about? I'm just passing my bro a joint, man. How is that supply? Well, it is in the eyes of the law. And just from the sentence of you having smoked that joint as possession to the difference of you offering it to your friend, the sentence difference is big, you know, just over one joint. And they, you know, so there is a lot of naivete in our young people about the criminal justice system, you know, and I think that that's the program that, you know, will sell. You know, it's not just about taking them off the road or trying to give them new ideas in order to go down different avenues, but arming them, because it's like Stephen says, knowledge, but I always say knowledge is no good without action. Because if there's no action behind it, you can have all the knowledge in the world. If you're not doing something with it, then it means nothing. You see? So, and that's the thing of trying to arm these young people with that knowledge, so that when they're out there in the community, they can handle themselves a little bit better because they've got more understanding of this guy standing in front of me, what is his limitations, what he can do and what he can't do, but if you don't have that knowledge, then, straight away, you're going to just have a battle. You're going to approach that person with a negative outset, a negative view, because you're not informed within yourself, and if you were informed within yourself, then your approach to that person would be a lot more calm, a lot more collective, because you understand yourself, if you see what I'm saying.
I want to say I really love where the conversation has already gotten to. I just want to, because you've mentioned a couple of times about the different experiences you've had, and the interventions and type of people that you've engaged with in the prison, and your contribution also to supporting programs for younger people. Can you tell me a bit about just your experience as a Black man in prisons, or in prison? One or
I think my perspective will be a lot different than I would have thought a lot, because, I mean, for one, obviously, I didn't go to prison when I was a youngster in this country. I mean, my first sentence in this country, I was 20, 21, or something like that. So I automatically straight away went to adult prison. Not that that makes any difference, but because obviously at that age, I was a bit more aware of myself and understood how to maneuver myself within that whole environment, because that's generally what happens within this whole racist situation and experience within prison, is a situation where you've got a white officer who is what we call kind of a dog officer. Yeah, he's one of those guys where he's just out there just trying to make trouble for everybody. He's just on everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're Black or white or not, but if he can obviously single out the Black guys easier, then he will do that. He will make that his target. Yeah. But for me, for myself, because I'm very articulate anyway, it was always a situation where officers will find it a little bit difficult to kind of draw me into that kind of situation, because I see where they're going with it and think, okay, I read that, I ain't falling for it. There's many ways to skin a cat. I'll show you how. Whereas a lot of my younger Black brothers will rise to the occasion immediately. The minute that officer says something that doesn't sit right, they're there. Yeah, because one, obviously, prison, as much as there is a lot of systemic racism within prison, you have to know that the ethnic minorities within prison are no longer standing for that kind of behavior. Yes, and that has to be the truth be known, and it has to be out there that we are no longer standing for. So whereas years ago, the brutality that came along with being in prison by white officers against, the ethnic minorities within prison, that has reduced a hell of a lot, because, we are a lot more united as the minority than we were before, So now an officer would think twice before he kind of goes down that road, because there are many different challenges, is, you know, because what would end up happening is the minute you step to a black guy or an Indian guy or whatever, you'll find there's another 6 or 7 brothers standing right there too, you know. So whatever his intentions or plans were, you know, that has to be avoided. You know, I think also it happens a lot more covert as well, right? It happens a lot more covert where, you know, officers realize that they can't go face to face with people anymore because that will put themselves in jeopardy. So what they do now is they affect the paper side of it. Yeah. So the pen becomes more powerful than the sword. Yeah. So what they do is they write stuff in your file. Mr. McCrae was very aggressive in his attitude towards me and blah, 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 and spoke to me out of turn. Now you get 3 of those kind of intros into your file, right? Now that takes you, because it's called an enhanced system. So you've got basic, standard, and enhanced. Yeah, as an enhanced prisoner, obviously you get a little bit more as a standard prisoner, and obviously standard beyond basic. So what they do is that's how they come at you. Yeah, so they now put the writing in the paperwork, and then when the SO kind of looks and says, right, well, you know, you got 3 warnings, we're going to degrade you from standard to basic, you know, and that's how they do it now. So it's, you know, it's a lot more focused like that. I mean, years ago, there was a lot of physical violence, but there's no more. I mean, that still happens, don't get me wrong. It still happens, but it's not in the same way.
No, thank you. I mean, it's called the incentives and earned privileges scheme.
That's correct.
IEP.
Yes, IEP system. You know it, girl. I tried to forget.
I know very well, very, very well. And yeah, I can say that I definitely agree with you and hear you when you say that the pen then becomes the choice of weapon. What's recorded is the negatives. What isn't recorded is the positives. So if somebody has missed their shower time and their phone time and their soch to help clean up something that an officer has asked for a person in prison to do, why is that not recorded? When they were told to do something and they complied, why is that not recorded? So then it just becomes all of these negatives, like they haven't engaged in anything positive, and that's all that's notified in order to degrade. And if you keep writing these small comments and, you know, oh yeah, they were aggressive, they didn't follow the instruction, they didn't go in their cell when there was a fight, it's like, well, how can that be my problem that somebody else is having a fight? I'm not involved or egging on anybody. I might have just been standing on the landing in front of my door, but because I didn't go inside quick enough for you, you're kind of noting. And, you know, I say all of that just to say that the pen is a very, very, well, I say the pen, the keyboard.
Yeah, but funny enough, I mean, on the
very powerful weapon.
Yeah, I'm following up on what you just said there. I mean, I can remember being on one of the reform committees in prison on this last sentence that I was on. And because I was at the time, I was at Coldenley prison in Surrey. And, you know, they had 120 code blues because of spice. Yeah. So that's the big epidemic right now in prison. I mean, yeah, right. So anyway, so they tried to, you know, get a reform group made up by officers as well as inmates, you know, to kind of create a bridge to find ways of maybe dealing with the wider situation that we had. So I made a suggestion to the PO, who was chairing the meeting at the time. I said to him, I says, why don't we have a gratitude box, kind of, you know, a box on the wall for both officers and inmates. You know, an officer does something, you know, for you, that you appreciate. You know, he's gone out of his way, he's taken time to solve a problem for you. You know, you put in a good comment into the box about the officer, right? When I said that to the PO, I mean, he looked at me like if I took a dump in his mouth. I'm sorry, but, you know, he just, oh. So I'm saying, well, what's wrong with that? And this is how much the system does not believe in itself, because he could not fathom it at all, could not see it at all, that someone would take the time to write something good about an officer and put it in a box. Yeah. So I said to him, I says, well, then that says to me that you don't believe in your system. So how can we believe in it if you don't believe in it? Because if you're saying, so what you're saying, that you don't think that there are no officers that are doing really good work? You think all of them are just here just to pay their mortgage? Do you know? I mean, because that's what happens in the end. They start off with this, you want to save the world, they get into the job, and then 18 months later, it's about, listen, I just want to pay my mortgage. I don't care. I'm just turning up, do the 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is I've got to do, and I'm off home. You know? But yes, so the thing is, you know, because it works both ways. You know, you could have a situation where I've seen, you know, an officer being attacked. Yeah, an officer being attacked, and the person that saved him wasn't his own officers, was an inmate. So stuff like that should be written. You know, this inmate has risked his life and also risked the blowback, yeah, that he's more than likely going to have to live with by the other inmates kind of getting on him for saving that officer from getting a hiding. Do you see what I'm saying? You know, so these are the things that need to be recorded in order to help. And I think if you had that two-way kind of conversation or recording information, in the end, it will work itself out, because the officer's saying, well, people are going to write in there, he's a dick, he's this, he's that. I said, yeah, maybe for the first couple of days. It's a new toy. You know, we're a captive audience. You know, and when you put a new toy in front of us, everybody wants to have a go. Do you know what I mean? But they'll be bored in 2 days. You know, and in 2 days' time, you'll start to get people who will come downstairs and put something constructive in there, you know, to help. But they weren't interested. They weren't interested. You know, the system doesn't help itself, because they believe, they have this viewpoint that I haven't got nothing to contribute. Yeah, because when they look, it says criminal. And from it says criminal, everything else after that means nothing. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I have learned that, you know, you have to stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before you, right? And this message is from, if you want to say that, the University of Crime. We're the professors, you know, because we're the people that our young men and women look up to, you know. We're the ones that they idolize and admire, and, you know, so therefore, we have got something to contribute in order to stop, to prevent, to help move forward. But a politician, you know, policymakers don't see it that way. You know, they don't see it that way.
Thank you so much for sharing, Adrian. It just, I mean, you know, it's powerful that you're in a position that you are, and you've started your own platform that aims to address these things, and also to provide, you know, the foundation. Just like you said, you have to stand on the shoulders of those that have come before you. It's like, yes, I've been through this. It was this way for me. So if me sharing my experience means that your experience doesn't involve what I've gone through already, and then some, like that's already taking that step forward. And then it ties in with the work that Stephen's doing, you know, just providing the reality of, this is what it's like. It's not like what this shows or what the shared anecdotes and, you know, the trumped up and glamorizing of prison experience, which we all know it isn't. As much as, no matter how many times you go in there, no matter how much you think you've got this wing and that officer patterned, it's still not a great experience in prison. So, you know, and who's really what person that's been in prison is going to come out and say, nah, it was, tell all of the negative sides? They're going to try and make it sound like it's more glorious and glamorous than it actually was. And until we do the pre-work, so the prevention work on a wider scale, and, you know, something that is part of the curriculum, not because it just, for me, my mind just is just boggled in the fact that the government doesn't have a scheme or a program or projects or avenues where they provide this. So they hire professionals to come and do this work in schools, in youth clubs, just in any space that a young person is. And I like the fact that you go into children's schools, Stephen. We'll be having a separate conversation because I really would like you to come to my kids' school. But I really just want to commend you and thank you, Adrian, for sharing that and for the work that you're doing and that is to come as well. It's absolutely amazing. But not to leave everybody else out, I do have some questions for Stephen and Alicia. Stephen, I really want to know, like, how did you get involved in the criminal justice system? Like, where did it start?
Well, you know, I was sharing the story at an event yesterday, and in fact, it was a pretty interesting comment by another lawyer who said, well, every lawyer says that. You know, I was 10 years old. I used to go home at lunchtime, and there used to be a program called Crown Court on, and I love that program. I love the music. I can still hear it ringing in my head. But, you know, from my perspective, I was a young 10-year-old black boy growing up in Thornton Heath in Surrey, Croydon. And when I looked on the screen, I didn't see black lawyers. I didn't see a black judge. Sometimes I'd see a black defendant in the dock who was part of the storyline. So my informed ambition was not the same as the white lawyer who was at this event yesterday, because he saw people who looked like him. So it was a natural aspiration for him. Whereas for me, I had to get past the color thing and think, I just love the look of this job. And then my thought was, well, I don't see one who looks like me, but nonetheless, that's not going to deter me. I want to know more about this profession. I love the articulacy. I love the drama of the courtroom. And so I used to go to the library and get books out on famous criminal cases. And my parents were really worried because they thought, gosh, our kid is getting books out about crime and looking up serial killers. They didn't understand that I was just fascinated by the psyche of why people commit offenses, what happened in the trial, what was the outcome, who were the lawyers, what were the arguments. And so, you know, that was where my interest in law was birthed. But of course, we didn't have the internet in those days, so anything you wanted to find out, you had to go to the library. But I was also fortunate that my cousin, who's much older than me, was already a practicing barrister. So he was one of the very few first black barristers practicing, and he wasn't even practicing in the area of criminal law. He was an employment lawyer. And I remember hearing stories from him about what it was like to be black at the bar practicing law. And by the time I got to secondary school, one of my closest friends, his older brother was about to go off to do a law degree. And then by the time I went through my secondary school, he was already at the bar practicing. So I had these two people I could look to. But that was where my interest was born. And then obviously I went down the traditional route of doing a law degree, going to law school. And I always tell the young people, look, it wasn't without its difficulties. And I love to share my failures because it's in sharing your failures that you inspire the youth to say it's okay to fall, because when you fall, it strengthens you and it allows you to reach those heights that you set for yourself when you had that dream. I love dreams. I love when young people dream about doing amazing things. When I watch the story of Lewis Hamilton as a 6-year-old kid going go-karting, I share it with the youngsters when I do my mentoring. Listen, the dream starts, the hard work then follows, and the reward will come. And so when people see this guy who's about to break Schumacher's record, they only see, a lot of the young generation, they only see the end result of a guy who earns millions now, has a private jet, but they don't know the hard work that went in to get to that position. And I always encourage people, know people's journey, know their story, warts and all, the failures. And I regularly tell people that, look, yeah, I'm a lawyer, successful lawyer, 27 years practice, but I'm going to tell you how I got here. My failed O-levels, my failed A-levels, my failure at bar school, and I had to resit the exam. No one asks me about that now, almost 10 years later, but I did fail. But what was more important was that in that area of failing was the chance to grow the resilience, the strength of character, the determination. And these are the tools you're going to need in any walk of life. I don't care whether you want to be a plumber, electrician, doctor, lawyer, accountant. All of those things are relevant. The character building. So, that was my journey into law. And it was tough back then because when we were looking to get into chambers to do our pupillage, many young Black lawyers were told, there's no room for you to be a commercial lawyer or a trust lawyer or the more sexier parts of the law where you earn lots of money. We were all told, go and be a common law lawyer, a criminal lawyer, a family lawyer. And for many of us, that was the only way we could actually get into the profession. So we accepted it. And, I'm proud of my journey in criminal law because actually I found my calling. I found the area of law where I'm most effective as an advocate in court, fighting for people. I love making closing speeches. I love the power that you have to change people's minds and opinions. So I'm not ashamed to be a criminal lawyer at all. I think we do a really valuable work in the community. We represent often those who are the most disadvantaged in society. And of course, what we see is, sadly, there are not enough Black people in the judiciary.
Hi guys, it's Keanu again. You're listening to the ReEducation podcast.